Hi, everyone. This is Brian Gorman, VP of Sales and co-founder of iPublish Media Solutions, and I'd like to thank you for your time. What we're going to do is I'm going to just quickly review the agenda, explain a few things on what we're doing here, and then we're going to get right to the two presentations that I know most of you are interested in hearing. So today with us we have Terry Hall, who's the Digital Director of the BH Media Group. Terry's been working with First Wave 2 and then iPublish for probably about 7 years now. She will be presenting first. They just launched Ad Portal Tributes this month, and she'll review that with you. We'll show you some examples of what was actually published. Then we're going to have Bob Birkenthal present. Bob is Director of Online Verticals with Gatehouse Media, and Bob's been working with iPublish almost as long as Terry. And Bob has a slightly different viewpoint because Bob's company, Gatehouse, actually approached us on the idea of doing this. So he brought the idea to us, and he'll kind of go through that whole decision process and how we helped each other to roll out this solution. So let me begin by just reviewing the agenda. I'm going to go over a quick overview only because I know many of you are already Ad Portal Obit customers, but some of you are not. And then I just want to make sure that everyone on the call knows a little bit about who we are and what we do. I'll explain what Ad Portal Tributes is. And I will also explain that we have two versions of it. We have launched with two separate companies so far, Gatehouse and BH Media. Now, both of them are Ad Portal Obit users already. So there's a version for Ad Portal Tributes for our existing customers. But there's also a version for customers who don't have Ad Portal. And we'll explain how that works as well. So the two use cases are BH Media and Gatehouse. And then we will, after that, we're going to do a demonstration. So the demonstration, we're going to show you the software, Ad Portal Tributes, and how it works. It's extremely simple and streamlined. Now, for those of you that already use Ad Portal Obituaries, we are going to do a demonstration of that. We're going to keep that towards the end. If you don't want to stay around for that, that's fully understandable. But for those of you that don't use our product, we will be showing you Ad Portal Obituaries. And then I think James answered the whole questions and answers. We should have about 15, 20 minutes at the end of this for questions and answers. Okay, a little bit about us. So we offer a leading self-service advertising platform. Obituaries is our biggest category, but it's not the only thing that we do. We do every type of print and digital ad that a newspaper publishes and sells, we can produce through our system. We have over 500 websites. We add anywhere from 5 to 10 new ones every month. As I mentioned, Obits is our most successful category. It makes up about a third of our websites. Last year, we processed 630,000 paid obituaries in the United States. We believe that's the highest of any single vendor in the country. We launched our first Ad Portal Tributes project in 2017, working with Gatehouse. And we basically finished the version that we presently have that we've released called Ad Portal Tributes this January, and it's now available for all of our customers. And we also have a non-Ad Portal version, and the only thing that's holding us up there is a customer. We have already figured out how we're going to do this, and we will explain how we're going to do this in one of my slides. Okay, so when we talk about Ad Portal Obituaries, we're actually talking about a lot of different facets. The principal part is the platform itself, and that produces obituaries that get published in a newspaper. Typically, a funeral home uses it. I'd say probably 80 to 90% of that 630,000 were funeral homes, but we also support private parties as well. The Tributes product is actually a print product. It's a special section that we will produce a print-ready page of your obituaries that just simply has to flow right into pagination and get published. We also have a digital website application called Lasting Memories, which which last year we sold nearly 100,000 licenses of, and this year we expect to double that. That is an enhancement to the print product. It's also an enhancement to legacy. It's not a replacement of legacy. It's an enhancement to it, and it's a way for our customers to produce more obituary revenue. Just this past year, we support a legacy product called Free to Paid, which we have live at McClatchy. We also offer a digital obituary product for smaller newspapers or newspapers that don't use legacy. And then, of course, we support legacy.com. We're the largest. We upload more obituaries to legacy.com than any single vendor out there. We also have a website called placeanobit.com. A lot of our funeral homes will place obituaries, in another market. And we have a lot of funeral homes which will go to one of our sites, create an account as a private party, and place an obit. So, for instance, somebody grew up in the Boston area, but they died in Florida, they need to place an obit. They can find every single one of our sites on placeanobit.com and just click, 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 and they're into the application. Okay, so when we talk about ad portal obituaries, it's an all-encompassing solution. So let me talk a little bit about the two workflows that we're going to be offering. So the Tributes workflow for ad portal customers. So for those of you that already use ad portal, you access Tributes through your ad portal system. You log in just like you do now, and we're going to show you how this works. There'll be just one button that you got to click, and when you click on that, okay, then you put in your dates as to when you want the Tribute section to run. So, for instance, if you do it monthly, you'd put in January 1st to January 31st, right? And then you put in an email address. And in the background, off of your ad portal system, we will be building these pages. And then when it's completed, that email will go back to the administrator or someone else in the organization and say, your Tributes is now ready to be proofed. There's a single proof step, and then you release the pagination. It's really that simple. We do all the heavy lifting. We do all the work for you. We will send you a press-ready, print-ready, full page of the Tribute section. Okay. Now, if you're a non-ad portal customer, workflow's pretty much the same. You would log into the ad portal. You would select what you want to run, and then we would set it up to take a feed from your advertising system. And we would work out those details. We would test that ahead of time, and then that would have to be sent to us. We would process it the same way. The email would go back when the pages are ready to be viewed. You go back into the system, and there's your pages for proof. It's a PDF file, so you can download it if you want. You can view it on screen, however you want to do it, and then you release it to pagination. So basically what we're talking about here is 3 clicks to meaningful revenue. You click once to trigger the process. You click a second time to put your dates in and your email address. You click a third time to produce the pages. It really is that simple. And when you hear our 2 customers that are doing this, I think they'll confirm that as well. Now, one of the things that's nice about it as well is you have total control over the design of it. And we build the templates. So you tell us what you want. You show us a mock-up of how you want it to look. You design it, and some of our customers are adding advertising and relevant content to it as well, turning it into a really nice special section. Okay, so I think at this point, we're ready to hear from our customers. So first, Terry Hall. So Terry will go through her use case, and then Bob. Okay, Terry?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Terry Hall, and I'm a digital director with BH. I appreciate your time today. We have been using Ad Portal for obituaries and BH Media for some time now, and we have 18 markets actually using it. And in 2017, we processed over 72,500 obituaries through Ad Portal. So we're obviously sending a lot of activity through that system. We first learned about Tributes from one of our advertising directors. He actually came to us from one of the Gatehouse papers, and he wanted to do something similar to what he had done there. So my first step was to reach out to Brian Gorman, and I will say that BH Media has a very good relationship with iPublish. Brian and all of his team are always very, very easy to deal with, and that gave us a certain comfort level with their ability to support our launches. Our funeral homes are obviously also very familiar with the tool, and they like using Ad Portal for obituaries. They find it easy to use, and I get a lot of good feedback there. Our first market to launch was Lynchburg, Virginia, and they actually launched this week, this Monday, and the section is out, and I'll have copies of that probably within the week that I can share if someone wants that. There was no development on our part. Brian assigned a project manager, and she was very, very easy to work with, and she did a lot of the coordinating and a lot of the organizing and really kept us all on task. The only expenses that we incurred, other than newsprint, was there's a fee associated, a wholesale fee associated with each tribute. One of the first steps was to canvass all of our newspapers to determine who wanted to go first. And out of our 18 markets using Ad Portal today, 9 of those signed up to go with our first phase. We are estimating about 40,000 tributes in 2018 from those first 9 markets, and we do expect more markets to sign up. In fact, I already have one that is asked to join in on the launch this year. We added an additional fee to each of our paid obituaries to cover tributes, and so as you can imagine, this is going to be a substantial new revenue source for our organization this year, and we're very happy about that. But we also wanted to add more revenue than just the revenue associated with obituaries, so we created the opportunity to have retail ad positions. We're going to have a deck ad position at the bottom of each page, and then we can also sell quarter pages, half pages, and full pages. And you'll see some of the prospects there that we went after. Each of our markets had to make a number of decisions, and we do try to customize things to a market's preferences. They needed to choose their format, whether they wanted to go broadsheet or tab. A lot of our markets like broadsheet because it gives them more flexibility with press configurations. They were able to choose whether or not they wanted to run monthly, quarterly, twice a year, or once a year. Lynchburg, our first market, is running monthly, so that's why they were the first ones to go. We're now working to launch the 3 markets that are going to run quarterly. And one of our markets, Waco, Texas, they only want to run once a year. So their first edition of tributes will be in January of 2019, and that will feature all the tributes from obituaries that run this year. And of course, they had to set their own retail pricing. One of our goals is always to make things as easy as possible for our markets to deploy. So I asked one market, Tulsa, Oklahoma, to come up with a design or a spec for our tributes, and then we turned that over to iPublish to come up with the actual template. And so then what I'm able to do is to take that same design, make it available to every market, and so some of them will probably adopt it just as it is. They can make tweaks if they want, or if they really want to come up with something totally different, they're free to do that as well. We also wanted to add content to put some extra interest into the section, so I asked Richmond if they would write some articles. So they've written, I think, 4 articles so far, and again, those articles will be available to everyone. If the markets want to create local content, that's fine as well. The information that we're using to include in the tributes is collected through fielded data, and what we're requiring is the full name of the deceased and the date they died, as well as the city and county and state, the city or county and the state they reside in. The optional fielded data is the deceased age and their birth date, as well as the name of the funeral home. And if a photo appeared in the original obituary, then we're also including that. We are promoting this in advance to our readers. You'll see a promotion ad that Lynchburg ran there. This ran in their obituary newsletter that comes out each day. And of course, we also created promotion ads for print and for our website. And this is some pages from our final product that launched this week. You'll see our cover there. What we're trying to do with the covers is make them local. And so it should change out for each edition. You'll see on the right a copy of one of the pages with the ad position at the bottom, and on the left, the article that ran in our first edition.
And Terry, you said that you said your pilot section was 6 pages. Is that right? 6 broadsheet pages?
Yes, that is correct. 6 pages.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course, the ones that run less frequently will be larger sections.
Right, right. Thank you so much. We're going to look at their first section that came out after we see the demonstration. So for now, we're just going to move right into Bob Birkenthal with Gatehouse Media.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be with you all today. So I started getting involved with obits about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was really kind of intrigued by it. And the publishers were asking for some ideas on how can we increase revenues. And frankly, all the ideas that were going around the room were the same things that plagued the newspaper industry, frankly, for a long time. How do we raise the rate? You know, and what is the rate increase going to be? And that obits, I'm sure many of you have experienced. It's been a category we've been able to get away with that, but frankly, we're under a lot of pressure right now, and so we started looking at different things to do. So, next slide, Jim. So one of the first things I started looking at was how much traffic are we getting on our website, and I was absolutely fascinated by the fact of how strong obits are. I don't know, for those of you that are on the phone, I don't have access to your traffic, but I'm willing to bet that for 80% of you, obits are your third most popular section on your website, and I'm pretty sure for 90% of you, it's within the top 5. So it's just incredible in how much traffic is coming into our site through the obits category, which illustrates in how important the category is to our site visitors. So then I started thinking about, well, how do we grow the traffic? And I started on the online side. We said, well, why don't we go to Legacy? We were using Legacy, their classic Legacy platform, and we made the upgrade to NGO, Next Generation Obituary. And we have a very good relationship with Legacy. They treat us very well. They give us a lot of insight, and we started doing that pretty well. But then we started, why should we stop at that? And so then we started circling back to print, and we said, well, how do we energize the print category? And if you're looking at the slide right now on the left, you can see a standard image, and there are a lot of different executions of print obituaries that are out there. In our markets, they run the gamut from something like a legal ad, a legal notice, to something a little bit more impressive, like you see on the right. And that image that you see on the right, that's one of the new formats that we came up with at Gatehouse, which actually reads more like a story. You've got the name at the top, you've got a headline, you've got an about, features, column that talks about them with a couple of different bullet points. And what we found is that there's just more data points to engage the reader into looking into the obit. So that was a big hit with our markets as we started launching that out. And all that, the only reason why that was doable is because we made the move to the iPublish obits platform. They use InDesign. You guys have heard all the stats before. So we started with the individual obits, but then we came up with the idea, we were just talking about the concept, if you would, what if we put out a section, and we call it a Tribune section. And we started, wrestling with the idea, but there were a lot of issues with it. This is what you're looking at right now is actually one of the first ones that we did, and the design has held up pretty well. But we actually had, if you go into the background of how the project came about, there were quite a few issues that we had to do. First of all, we were looking at 6 markets. We identified 6 markets with enough obits to do a section like this. We developed the concept, but frankly, we were hampered by the operational issues and logistics of putting it together. We just didn't have the publishing systems in place to do it. So we brought it to iPublish, at least the concept with it. They worked with us, and they helped us, come up with a prototype. And then we launched this, at the time, we launched this as a bundled product. We bundled it right in the middle of 2016, I think it was, with a $25 rate increase. Now, we actually only we specifically chose certain markets because we did experience some pushback. And so what we tried to do is that we tried to do this with markets where we had the least amount of rate increases that are out there. So that worked out reasonably well. Better, we did get a lot of pushback to the rate increase up front. We generated a lot of revenue, and we're still expecting more markets to join and increase the revenue even further. If you go to the next slide, Jim. What we learned, though, it was kind of interesting because we actually, once the section came out, we actually had a lot of feedback, from the local market readers, et cetera. And if you look at all the product improvements that we've done, whether it's improving the legacy side, improving the online, which actually drove a lot more traffic to our websites, improving the look and feel of the individual print obits, or moving to the offering the portal or the tribute section. The ad portal still ranks the most popular things we've done with the funeral homes. And the tribute section, when it comes out, it is amazing how much feedback we get from the local markets that are out there. A lot of people wanting an extra copy of it. So it really was, we really found that this is a hit, and this is where we want to expand it as much as possible. It's highly profitable. It's frankly, it's a crime in how profitable it is. There's very little marketing or expense or development costs up front. The licensing fees that iPublish have are very attractive to us. So it's a highly profitable section, very good response from the communities. The feedback that I would offer you folks, because again, when we first did this, it was 3 or 4 years ago, and when we did it, we passed an aggressive rate increase to cover it. I don't know if we can do that in the same markets, launch it again the same time around. So my recommendation, my humble recommendation would be, if you're thinking about doing it, is that first of all, don't run it once a year. That was our original plan, to run this as an annual section. And a couple of funeral homes quickly pointed out, you got to run it more than once a year, because what if somebody's left out? They got to wait a full year to get back into it. So we implemented it as a 2 to 4 times a year program that's out there. But as we run into more price-sensitive markets, I think what Terry was showing us, I think that's a monthly implementation, or at least some of our markets are monthly. We're kind of leaning in that direction to launch it, because with a monthly implementation, we could launch it and get the public used to what it looks like, and get some acceptance, and then if there's a rate increase, some sort of a modest rate increase, we could implement that. Whereas when we launched these initially 4 or 5 years ago, we actually had to launch it, and we were basically telling everybody, trust us, the section is going to look great in 5 months. And that was a tough one. So if I had to do it again, I think at least in some of our more rate-sensitive markets, I'd be leaning towards a more frequent publishing cycle, maybe 6 times a year, or even monthly, on a monthly basis. So that's our experience with it. So Jim, I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you so much, Bob. All right, so now it's time for our demonstration. As Brian mentioned in the intro, we are going to start with ad portal tributes, and then we'll move right into ad portal obituaries, and then we'll be heading right into the Q&A section. So, as promised, I'm going to show from Lynchburg's site how the administrator initiated the tribute section. So an administrator is just going to log in at the ad portal. They're going to go to the admin and click on reports. Well, I'm sorry, they're going to go to the admin and click on orders, not reports. And they're going to click this generate tribute section. And as Brian mentioned, it's just simple, right? You just put in the start date of the date that you want to publish the tributes for, the end date, and then type in the email address of the person that you want to be notified once the section is generated. Now, it's important to know too that this section is generated on a separate ad portal, so it doesn't hamper or interfere at all with the performance of your obituaries ad portal. And so that administrator will get an email from Tributes and says your section is ready and you can go and download it. And I thought for today I'd just show you Terry's section that published on Monday of this week. There's the cover. You can see the full, this is a broadsheet implementation. The ad positions there are at the bottom. And just a really nice looking section. It was 6 pages. And then they wrote some content. They put some content in the back. And then I will show you the most recent one from Gatehouse, and this is a tab product. And so when we go through this, you'll see that it's very similar. The information that's being portrayed is very similar as well. With tab products, you know, Terry said this earlier, that they chose a broadsheet because it's a little bit easier to produce. But with tabs, you have to get a certain amount of pages. So I really like what Gatehouse did in throwing in these scenery shots to make the publication go so they could get an even page count. All right, so that's tributes. From here, I'm going to go right into, for those that don't know or have never seen our ad portal obituaries product, I'm going to do this. It's only going to take about 5 minutes for me to go through this, and then we'll start our question and answer with Terry and Bob. All right, so this is ad portal, a funeral, and I'm going to go over the funeral home's experience. So a funeral home's going to log in. They're going to click create a new ad. They're going to choose an obituary. Our obituary application can serve both in memoriams and obituaries. I'm going to focus on obituaries today, so they'll select their package. They're going to select a template. This is kind of where the revenue lift begins for us. We present the obituary as a display ad, but we rate it as a liner. They choose a layout, and then they, you know, the funeral home will type in their content. We load all of your editorial fonts onto our publishing platform so that we can match your current editorial styling. All of the templates are what we call smart templates. They know what color space is allowed in the section that it's going to run in. This particular market publishes color obituaries, but if you're in a market that only publishes grayscale, we have an InDesign plugin that'll convert that image to grayscale on the fly. Then there's other revenue opportunities centered around civic symbols and funeral home logos. We can add galleries for both. And we're seeing this trend. A lot of sites are starting to offer more than one civic symbol. For the funeral home logos, we tie that to the funeral home's account. And so when the funeral home logs in, their logo can automatically be pulled into the template. So from here, they're going to click continue. So this step right here is what garners the adoption rate that we're seeing by funeral homes. They love this step. They get the proof immediately, and they can see a price exactly how much it's going to cost. If they click this preview your ad, they can download the high-res PDF. They can save the ad for later if they need to and come back and finish it and publish it at a later time. From here, they're going to click continue. They're presented with a deadline-sensitive calendar for your obit section. If you have additional products that can accept obituaries, you can offer those as upsells on this page as well. This market is using and selling one of our later products called Lasting Memories. Brian mentioned it on the intro. This is a dedicated website, social media website that the family licenses. So at this point, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. So at this point, the funeral home would type in the family member's name that they're working with for the internment. Or if it's a family doing it, the individual that's placing the obituary for their family would type in their first name and last name and email address. They would fill out the information that's required, and they would click continue. As Brian mentioned, we have sent more obituaries to Legacy than any other single entity. And this form here is the search information that we collect so that we can send it to Legacy. If your market uses their own digital product, we can send this via an XML file to your webmaster. We do hang on to the color version of the photo of the deceased so that it can be used for the digital listing. And then from here, the user just clicks continue. For private party implementations, the private party would fill out a form similar to this to create their account. I've logged in as a administrator so that I can talk about the different payment options that we support. So all of our applications support the credit card process. We use your credit card API and all of those transactions flow in your merchant account. There are no fees for us for that. The bill to client account is reserved for your funeral homes. We take extracts from your front end system. We can preload those funeral homes complete with their account number with you, and then they can check out without supplying a credit card. Our cash and check payment option is for walk-in traffic through the front door. So as Brian mentioned earlier, a lot of our sites use Ad Portal Obituaries for 100% of their obituaries. And so they set up a terminal in the front waiting room, or they can, the front counter person can serve that walk-in customer and collect cash or check payment. All right, so once the obituary has been purchased, the family member receives an email from Lasting Memories that'll give them a link to their loved one's site and instructions for how they can log in and start customizing the look of the site. For time considerations, I'm just going to jump right to a live one just to talk about at a high level what the different high points are of this application. So it is there are about 20 different templates that the family can choose from for the look and the feel. They can write letters to the viewer. Viewers come and can post memorial tributes. We call it lighting a candle. The only advertising, so there's not going to be any advertising on the left and right rail. The only advertising is a respectful block here for the newspaper's name and logo and link to the newspaper site. And then if the funeral home assisted the family in purchasing it, the funeral home's logo and link to the funeral home site will be there as well. The family can invite folks either through Facebook friends or through a traditional email blast. Anybody that's registered with the site or wants to post content to the site, they have to register with a valid email address, and the family administrators are notified whenever that happens. The family then can log in and start adding narrative to their loved one to their site, and they can break that narrative up into chapters, like this family has done for their loved ones. The gallery tab will accept unlimited amounts of photo, audio, and video, and it's portrayed in a full screen slideshow when clicked on the right rail. The family controls the order of the photos. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from the funeral homes. They love this. They're using it at the memorial service to play on screens within the funeral home. The stories tab is where visitors can come and tell stories about their loved one or friend, and they can illustrate that story with a picture, song, or video. And then finally, the obituary tab is where the printed obituary would appear as it appeared in the newspaper. And this is available as a high-res PDF for any viewer that would like to download it for a keepsake. And that is Lasting Memories. All right, so we've got several questions coming in. Thank you for your patience. And I'll start reading these questions off. So the first one is from Preston Gibson, is asking, do you have newspaper customers, BHME or other, using this in New Jersey? I ask because we understand funeral homes in New Jersey are prohibited from upselling obits or similar services. This prohibition diminishes funeral home incentives for working with us on obituaries initiatives.
We do have a location in New Jersey, in Atlantic City. So I've not heard that before, so I'd be interested in knowing more about that restriction. And that paper has signed up to participate. They have not published yet.
Yeah, this is Brian Gorman. We don't know of that regulation either. We have other sites in New Jersey that use our self-service. But so we would be interested in getting that information as well.
Definitely.
All right. Katie asks, can Terry or Bob offer any suggestions on the number of obits that would make you opt for a monthly section versus a quarterly section? That's actually a good question.
Yeah. So I don't know if from our perspective it would be driven by the number of obits that we have. It's possible, but I think the more likely scenario is, are we going, again, like I indicated before, if you're going to attach, let me back up. So it doesn't appear to work if you make these optional, because if you make it optional to opt into the tribute section, you're not going to have enough to publish a section. So in our opinion, you've got to make it a mandatory bundle. So the question is, after you've modeled it out, how much revenue you're trying to generate from this, if you're going to go, if you're coming off of a heavy rate increase previously or recently, and you're trying to launch a section, I think it's going to be difficult for you to launch something that comes out a couple times a year. I think the easier thing to implement, in my opinion, would be a monthly section, because then people can see it. You start building consumer acceptance, awareness, and anticipation of it, and then you can, feather in a rate increase at some point. So I think whether to go monthly or quarterly or twice a year, it's driven by what do you think will work for you. Having said that, there's the other side of it too. You want to have critical mass that's out there, and so I forget how many obits we have per page, but I think I could see going either way, monthly or quarterly. And again, from our perspective, I think it's are you trying to add on a new bundled product into an arena where you're experiencing heavy, much sensitivity to rate increases. That's my perspective, at least.
That's actually a good answer. Terry, do you want to weigh in on that?
I pretty much agree with everything that Bob said. I think you do want to have a certain amount of critical mass, and probably, the section that we did in Lynchburg that was 6 broadsheet pages, you probably don't want to go much smaller than that. But I do like the idea of going monthly. I think Bob mentioned earlier that if there is a mistake where you've left someone out, it gives you the opportunity to correct that pretty quickly. And the sooner you can actually get the product in everyone's hands, I think the better. So,
I did a count. Oh, go ahead, Terry. Sorry.
If I was the ad director at any of our properties, I would probably run monthly.
Yeah, I did a count on Terry's section, which is a broadsheet section. She fit between 70 to 75 ads on a page, and that included the ad that was at the bottom of every page. In Bob's section, where there are no ads for a tab section, the number is between 40 and 55, I would say. So that gives you an idea of what you can expect in terms of putting them on the page. All right, Mandy asks, can you participate with the tributes if you're not on the ad portal platform? If so, do you require just a feed for the info and photo?
And the answer to that is yes, you can. And we just need the feed and we need the photos. So the photos, a lot of times when we import photos, we just need URLs. So we would work all those details out with you.
All right. Preston asks a follow-up question. If the funeral home is doing the placement, what is their incentive, and are they upselling it to their clients? I think, Preston, what Bob mentioned earlier, it's a forced buy, so there's no real upselling. One possible advantage to the funeral homes could be if you decide to include the funeral home information in each of the tribute listings. That could be something of an incentive for them. Bob or Terry, do you want to answer how you guys handle that question?
I was just going to say, as far as the incentive, again, if you've made the decision to bundle in a tributes type of product into it, then the question is, do they have any kind of incentive to use you? And we get this sometimes. Some funerals have less of an incentive to use us. But generally speaking, what we've found is that the ad portal is actually very much appreciated by the funeral homes. I mean, in all of my markets, we have very competent, very conscientious obit representatives and clerks that are very good from a customer service perspective. But sometimes they just can't get back to the funeral home fast enough. It might take a couple hours, and we're in an environment where hours seems like days. They want it right now. They want confirmation of price. And so I think the incentive for the funeral home, once you've figured out whatever your product suite is, and Brian referenced this, I think the adoption rate with funeral homes is like 80 or 90%. the incentive for them is they were just using it's a better way as opposed to just emailing us the photo. They get to proof it out on the spot. They can proof it out actual size. They can even send it off for lamination right then and there if that's what the family wants. So that's my experience with it.
Right. All right. Todd asked. Oh, go ahead, Terry.
I'll say that we have very good relationships also with our funeral homes, and I haven't heard any real pushback. In our 9 markets that we launched this in, the funeral homes are already, and the families are already paying that extra charge for each of the obituaries, and very little, if any, pushback anywhere. And I think a lot of that has to do with the good relationships that we have with the funeral homes and the way they present things for us.
Right. All right. Todd asks, how are display ads entered into the tribute system? How are stories entered in? So, Todd, oh, go ahead, Terry. You can field that one if you want.
Oh, well, no, that's all right. Go ahead.
We deliver a high-res, native InDesign file to the newspaper. So if they are going to place ads on the page, they have the InDesign file and they can place the ads and the editorial content themselves. If it's not going to have any ads and they're just going to run it as is, we would send them a high-res print-ready PDF. All right, Julie asks, what has been the feedback from funeral homes on the tribute section?
Yeah, so the feedback that we've had has been very, very good, but what's been driving the excellent feedback from the funeral homes is, frankly, the excellent feedback that we've been getting from the customers, the consumer. I know on several of our markets, we typically get pummeled with requests from the funeral homes because they've been getting pummeled with requests from the family. I mean, it's a nice thing. The funeral homes like it because, frankly, it's an additional opportunity for them to re-engage with the family. I mean, if the tribute section comes out 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, after the initial obit, there's another legitimate reason for the funeral home to, re-engage the family, stay in touch with them, and they like it from that perspective. But again, I think what's been driving the good feedback that we've been having from the funeral homes is that we've been getting a lot of very positive customer feedback from the families about the section.
Terry?
And I echo that. I think I said a minute ago, we've had, as of January 1, we started having additional costs. We sent out a letter to each funeral home explaining the way it was going to work in advance. And again, they're very familiar with Ad Portal. We have good relationships with the funeral homes, and therefore, they're our face a lot of times with the family members, and no real pushback. So I was very pleased about that.
Great, thanks. All right, Chris asked, how is revenue recognized on tribute pages that run annually, semi-annually, or quarterly?
Well, we recognize the revenue monthly, or actually each obituary that's published. So immediately we start to recognize the revenue, and it's my understanding that what's going to happen when the publication actually publishes, the controllers will take that revenue at that point and move it to the day that the section actually runs. But they are already recognizing the revenue in their financials, even though most of our markets have not published yet.
I think the way we do it is that we accrue the revenues up front, but then it's allocated for the date of the publication. So let's just say, to keep it simple, let's say you had a $100 obit that was the total price, and $10 of that was going to the tribute section. We would recognize the revenue up front, but we would actually accrue $90 of the day of the print obit, and $10 gets accrued to the date when the section actually publishes. There's different ways to do it. That's a finance decision. I didn't have to make that decision.
All right, so Nancy asks, we require verification of death for private party obituary placements. Can this information be added to the template field along with a request for email or a phone number in order to contact the family or funeral home? Yep, Nancy, that's exactly right. So in markets where we are accepting private party obituaries, The newspapers put in additional fields that are required fields, and they involve the funeral home information and the phone number so that they can contact the funeral home to verify the death. All right, Amber asks, you had a sample 3-column obit tribute with photo and bullet points. Is this coming via a template, or do you physically make these changes after the content being imported?
So that image that you saw from us wasn't a tribute obit. That was an actual print obit. So in our portals, we offer a couple different options. You know, I mean, do you have just a basic obit with no photo? Do you have multiple photos? But we have something we call an enhanced obituary in our markets, as you're seeing on the screen right now. So that's not a tribute presentation. That is a presentation for the obit in the actual newspaper. It's one of the options that we have.
And it is that template is in Ad Portal.
Yeah.
All right. So,
yep.
What was the BH Media rate increase?
It varied by market. Each market was able to determine what their rate increase was going to be. So if you want to know specifics, just send me a note later.
Okay. With the $25 increase per ad for the tributes page, what is the total average cost per order, tributes page, obituary, print ad, legacy?
It runs the gamut, small, medium, and large markets. I think the average price of our obits range anywhere from about $100, $125 with this product, up to maybe $350. I mean, you can go higher than that for a very, very long obit. But I think they range anywhere on average from about $100 to $125 to $350, which frankly concerns me, because at that end, you know, again, referencing some of the research that was done by Legacy that I think some of you might have seen, we're getting into an interesting territory where our pricing is getting very, very high. We have to be very, very cognizant of that. But again, I'd say the range is about 100, 125, up to about 350 on average.
All right. Another question from Katie. Are Bob and or Terry getting requests for overruns of this print section?
We did. It caught us off guard the first time we did it. You know, I think our first market was Canton, Ohio. I'm not sure. But now we routinely, I think we run off a couple thousand. I think we deliver a couple hundred to each funeral home. That's my recollection.
Oh, wow.
in most of our markets. Yep.
We've not had that, but then again, we just launched this week, so maybe we will.
Yep. So, Mandy, Bob just answered your question. They do take about 100 copies to the funeral homes. Terry, did you do any overruns for the funeral homes?
We did not do overruns for the funeral home. They did do some overruns for internal use, but quite frankly, I hadn't thought about that, so that's a good idea.
Oh, good. Okay. And then finally, Julie asks, will we be sending out the deck and recording to attendees?
Yes, absolutely. We have recorded this, and there'll be a link on the website, and then anyone who attended or even registered, you'll get it via email.
That was the last question, Brian.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, listen, I think we're pretty much wrapped up here. I'd like to thank you very, very much. Hopefully, you got the type of information you were looking for. We like to run these webinars so that you can hear from actual users, and I want to thank Terry and Bob for doing a great job and answering the questions. And we will look for an email. We'll get an email to you with the link to the recording. And then, Julie, I'll send you the deck directly myself. If you'd like to see a final copy of one as well, we can send that out as well. I mean, the actual finished product. We're thinking of sending those out as well. So just send me a quick email and requesting that. Okay, well, listen, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.